How is everybody doing? Good, I hope. I'm we just did the first part of Luke chapter 8. And so I'm going to finish chapter 8 today. There's a lot to it because we're seeing Jesus do a lot of amazing miracles, and even though I've read Luke many times, I'm learning new things. So I wanted to point out to you the book I've been studying. And there's more books that this author has written. So this is, Yeshua, the Life of Messiah, from Arnold Frottenbaum. He's a Messianic rabbi. And I point that out again because I'm referencing this book a lot. So I've been reading other things and watching other teachings on Luke all the time. But a lot of my information is from this author because he is digging deeper than anyone. And this is just the abridged version, so, I might want to get the 4-volume because this is intense stuff, and that would be 4 times as much information. So, anyway. But I did say something really dumb last time. I wanted to point it out to you, and, that often happens. That often happens, and I have to correct myself. And I don't even know why I said this, because I'm looking back and I'm like, Ginger, no. But anyway, I told you guys in the last lesson that I said something to the effect of, hold on, finding my spot. I said that Jesus, that he was a descendant of Eve, but not Adam. That's so not true. I don't even know why that came out of my mouth. Like when I listened to it, I'm like, Ginger, hello? What were you even trying to say? Of course Jesus was a descendant of Adam. We're all descendants of Adam. And Jesus came from woman, not man. So he didn't come from the sperm cell of a man. Joseph was not his biological father. And maybe that's what I meant to say. He wasn't a descendant of Joseph, technically, just through adoption. But, of course, he was related to Adam. His mother, his biological mother, Mary, was related to Adam and Eve, just like I am and everyone else. So I didn't mean to say that. Anyway, I apologize. And I've done that before. And I'm not a person who really edits my videos. I guess maybe I should. I think it's easy, like if you do it on iMovie, and maybe I should do it. But a lot of times if I'm really acting goofy or really tired and don't explain myself well, a lot of times I'll just re-record it or just go with it. Hope you get it. But anyway, having said all that, yes, Mary and Jesus were descendants of Adam. Like, when they do the genealogies in the Gospels, they go all the way back to Adam. So anyway, we all come from Adam and Eve. It's just that Jesus was able to accomplish what Adam could not, to obey the Lord perfectly. Excuse me. Dry throat. Anyway, so today we're going to start with Luke chapter 8, verse 21. No, that's not true. I'm not even in the right spot. I was reading some other stuff, so I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, I'm going to start with chapter 8. I guess we went through Jesus stilling the sea. Is that right? Let me check. Yeah, we did. We talked about how Jesus calmed the sea. And if you ever go to Israel, which I highly recommend, you need to cross that lake, the Sea of Galilee. So just a quick reminder of those of you who aren't familiar with the Sea of Galilee. It'll really help you if you get a little familiarity with it. And when I actually visited there, I'm telling you, I understood the scriptures, the Gospels, the whole Bible better than ever before. Because you're experiencing some of the same things. So the Sea of Galilee is a lake up at the top of Israel, up at the upper end. And Jesus was born in, of course, way down south in Bethlehem, but he spent much of his growing up in Nazareth, which was a town not too far away from the lake. And then he and his disciples ministered around the lake, teaching and healing and all of that. And so there's a lot of towns around there. And we'll discuss this a little bit more, but there's a Gentile side of the lake at this time, which Gentiles are non-Jewish people. And then there was a Jewish side of the lake. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but let me go ahead and start reading. We're going to read about some miracles, starting with verse 26. Let me go ahead and start reading. They sailed to a country, and I don't think I'm saying it right. They sailed to the country of Gerasenes, Gerasenes, which my author refers to this place as Gadara, Gadara, which is the opposite of Galilee. So there's a Galilean side of the lake, and there's this other side of the lake. And when he came out onto the land, he was met by a man from the city who was possessed with demons, and who had not put any clothing on for a long time, and was not living in a house, but in the tombs. When you go to Israel, you'll see a lot of tombs. And so this area obviously had some tombs in the rock or whatever. And this man was actually living in the tombs where dead people would stay. But he was still alive. Seeing Jesus, he cried out and fell before him and said in a loud voice, "What business do we have with each other, Jesus, the Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." Isn't it interesting, these demons that were in the man recognized Jesus? There's no indication this man had ever met Jesus before, not that we're aware of, but the demons in him recognized Jesus. Well, why is that? Because they knew him before. They knew him in the heavenlies before he became a man. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For it had seized him many times, and he was bound with chains and shackles and kept under guard, and yet he could break his bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. So this man, he had supernatural strength. People tried to control him by chaining him up. I mean, I'm assuming they considered him dangerous. But he had supernatural strength. He would break those chains and run off. And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. I read in my book that it was common, I think when Jews were doing exorcisms or casting out demons or whatever, they would ask, "What is your name?" They would ask the demon, "What is your name?" Now, these demons, more than one say legion. Now, a legion, like if you're talking about the Roman army, a legion was a group of Roman soldiers that could be, I've read different things. Like, I've read that it could be 4,000 to 6,000 soldiers. It could be 1,000 or 2,000 to 6,000 soldiers. But, like, it would max out maybe at 6,000 soldiers. And some people take this really, really literally, and they say, well, he had 6,000 demons in him. A lot of people just take it figuratively and say, well, it's making a comparison there. Like, this person had many demons in him, and that's why they call it legion. And because a legion has many soldiers in it. So, it doesn't say if it's figurative or literal, so I don't know how many demons he had in him. It could be 6,000. It could be under that. Maybe it really fell into that true number that a legion might fall into, like 2,000 or up to 6,000 or something like that. Or it could just be a lot of demons, and they refer to themselves as legion because there's many. But I don't know. I can't help but think it might have been within that number that a legion might be in. So, not that it matters totally, but it's fun to think about these things like, I wonder, But these demons are obviously afraid of Jesus. And they recognize him immediately, even in his physical body. Jesus had a pre-existence. We do not. I did not have a pre-existence. I began in my mother. But Jesus did, because Jesus is God who became man. And they would know him from them. He's their creator. He created... Demons are fallen angels. I think people they confuse what angels are and they confuse what demons are. Demons are evil angels. They're angels who turn their back on God. So let's go to verse 31. So anyway, Jesus would be the creator of these angels. He created them good, but they turned bad. And so he's their creator. They know him. They know him. They were imploring him not to command them to go away into the abyss. Okay. An abyss, I wrote it down. Okay, an abyss is like a part of a larger place. So, like in Hebrew, it would be Sheol, Sheol, and then in Greek it would be Hades. It would be called Hades. And I don't understand hell and never will because I'm not going there. But it sounds like it's a part of it. And even they hate it. If the demons hate it, think how horrible it would be for a human. So anyway, so they are begging not to be cast there because Jesus has the authority to cast them there. Let's see, where am I at? Now there was a herd of many swine feeding there on the mountain, and the demons implored him to permit them to enter the swine, and he gave them permission. Okay, there's pigs kind of grazing there on the hillside. Now, even over the years as I read this, I know something right away. I know these people in these areas are not Jews. They're Gentiles. So how do I know that? Because Gentiles don't eat pork. They consider pigs to be an unclean animal and they don't own them. So these are not Jews Jesus is dealing with. Now this is where I learned some new things. Okay, so the Sea of Galilee, it had a Jewish side, and our author says that's from Migdol to Bethsaida, or did I read that elsewhere? I think I read that elsewhere. And then a Gentile side from Tiberias to Caesarea. Tiberias is still there. I've been to Tiberias. So he was in Gentile territory. And this Gentile territory, you'll hear the word Decapolis, Decapolis. That was 10 cities near the lake, and that's the area that Jesus is in. Okay, so there's a Galilean region, and that included Tiberias and Capernaum. So the Galilee region, it sounds like it was made up of part of the Gentile area and part of the Jewish area, if I'm understanding it correct. And then there was the region of Decapolis, but wouldn't that include the 10 cities? Anyway, I don't know. But these Jews typically avoided the Decapolis, this area where Jesus is at. There were people who were into Greek Hellenism there, and so Roman military lived there. Maybe some Jews who were Hellenized or whatever, meaning that they accepted the Roman culture and the Greek way of doing things. So, I think just like in any culture, there's probably Jews who kind of accept the Romans and think they're okay. So, I don't know. But it's generally considered a Gentile area, and Jesus happened to go there. But, Jesus came for everyone, for the salvation of all mankind. But, you see him a lot dealing with the Jews. He is a Jew. So it's interesting when we see him interact with Gentiles. And remember, Luke is very interested in his interaction with Gentiles. Luke is very possibly a Gentile himself. So let me finish reading this, and then I'm going to comment a little more. Where am I at? Okay, so these demons, they ask, can we enter the pigs? It's almost like demons need a place to dwell, like bodies. Interesting, huh? So we know from this that an animal can be possessed by a demon. Anyway. And the demons implored him to permit them to enter the swine. They couldn't do it without his permission. Interesting. And he gave them permission. Even more interesting. I don't know why Jesus allowed them to enter the swine. I just think that's interesting. And the demons came out of the, and he gave them permission, and the demons came out of the man and entered the swine. And the herd rushed down the deep bank into the herd and was drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they ran away and reported it in the city and out in the country. The people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting down at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they became frightened. Those who had seen it reported to them how the man who was demon-possessed had been made well. And all the people of the country of the Gerasenes and the surrounding district asked him to leave them, for they were gripped with great fear, and he got into the boat and returned. But the man from whom the demons had gone out was begging him that he might accompany him. But he sent him away, saying, "Return to your house and describe what great things God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city what great things Jesus had done for him. Okay, there's a lot I wanted to say here, so let me look at my notes for just a second. Okay. So, anyway, this man, he was obviously known in the area. Now, this place that they're at, which our author refers to as Gadara, Gadara, but the Bible translation I'm reading, which is the New American Standard Bible, highly recommend it because it's a literal translation, word for word, but there are other translations that you can do. And if you're brand new and need to read a paraphrase like the Living Bible or the New Living Translation, that's okay. Eventually you may want to transfer when you have a better understanding, but that might help. And it is just a paraphrase, so you would have to look things up to make sure they're paraphrasing it correctly and all that. So anyway, this area, it's a city and a region. In the same way that our author compares it to, in the same way that, how did he say it? You know how New York, it's a city and it's also a state. He compares it to that. So this is a city and a region. It's a city that's part of the region, and they're both called the same thing. So some of the gospel writers will focus more on the city and some more on the region. But anyway, so this man, he's so out of control with his demons that he's known. He's known by the people in this area. They know he runs around naked. He's been chained up. He has supernatural strength. He's scary. He runs. He lives in the tombs. So when this happens, and, the people own those pigs, Gentiles, because Jews wouldn't own pigs. And I knew that even before I studied all this. I learned a lot of new things in this. But one thing that's clear is that these are not Jews that Jesus is dealing with. These are Gentiles, because Jews wouldn't eat pigs. When it is, when they see what happens, there's obviously people around. When they see what happens, they go tell everybody, and people come out and check it out. Anyway, some of the gospel writers go into more detail. But they come out and they see. I'm not going to read, I don't think I'm going to read from the other gospel accounts today, but anyway, they see him in his right mind. It kind of scares them, because that's not, they're like, they realize the power that Jesus brought with him. I mean, this is serious, right? So anyway, so they're fearful. Verse 36, those who had seen it reported to them how the man who was demon-possessed had been made well. And all the people of the country of the Gerasenes and the surrounding district asked him to leave them, for they were gripped with great fear and got into a boat and returned. You'd think they'd want Jesus to stay with what he was just able to accomplish, but he scared them. His power scared them. But the man from whom the demons had gone out was begging him that he might accompany him. But he sent him away, saying, "Return to your house and describe what great things God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city what great things Jesus had done for him. Now, some points here. This man, obviously a Gentile, not a Jew, wanted to be like a disciple. He wanted to follow Jesus around. But Jesus did not permit that. He said, go tell all the people, your friends, your family, whatever, what I've done. Okay, this is significant because Jesus, with many of the Jews, and we'll learn this in the next miracle, he's like, don't tell anybody what I did. And I don't totally understand that. But for some reason, with the Gentiles, it seems like he wanted the Gentiles to know what he had done. And with the Jews, he didn't want them to know the miracles. But a lot of times the Jews knew anyway. He was famous among them. So some people will say, well, why did Jesus allow the pigs to be possessed by the demons? Well, some people are like, well, they shouldn't be eating pork. They weren't, the Gentiles were not under Jewish law. They could eat pork. So that's probably not why. I don't know why he allowed the demons to go into the pigs, but it's interesting. It's just interesting to think about. When I would teach little kids at school this story, it was one that they would really remember. It seems like it was one that just would stick in their heads. They were pretty fascinated by these pigs going off into the hillside and drowning. So, what else did I want to tell you? Okay, he didn't allow this man who was a Gentile to be one of his disciples. All of Jesus' disciples were Jews. But this Gentile man had a ministry. And I wanted to read to you in my book, page 243, some of the results of this Gentile man's ministry, the man who is possessed by demons. So that's on page 243 if you have it. If you don't have it, I think you can buy it online. My brother told me, he buys tons of books by this ministry that sells these, but I don't remember what it is. So just, you can Google it. But, okay, so this guy, he does go tell everybody what Jesus has done. Now, when Jesus returns to that area, he's accepted because of the ministry of this man who tells everyone what Jesus did for him. And they see this man who was once nuts, who was possessed by demons, he's in his right mind now. The result of his work, the man who is possessed, the result of his work will be seen later in the feeding of the 4,000, a different miracle, when the people welcomed Yeshua. Yeshua is Jesus. When people welcomed Jesus instead of asking him to leave. So later, because of this man's ministry, he is welcomed in that area later. And that Jesus knew that would be important. So a lot of times people think, well, what I'm doing is not that important for Jesus. It probably is, because you don't see all the future that Jesus has planned for that. There's reasons why you do what you do. Even though it might not seem that important to you, he thought it might be more important to become a disciple. But Jesus had another plan, which was equally important, so that these Gentile people would receive him later. Okay, so now we're going to go into a different miracle. Jesus is going to raise a young child from the dead. She's 12 years old. So, anyway, let's read it. He and the disciples are going to get in the boat, and they're going to return to the other side of the lake, to the Jewish region of the lake. And as Jesus returned, the people welcomed him, for they all had been waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, I can't remember, Jairus. I was going to look up the pronunciation. I've read this name a million times, and I still get it wrong. Anyway, our author calls him Yair. Anyway. And he was an official of the synagogue, I'm assuming the local synagogue there. And he fell at Jesus' feet and began to implore him to come to his house. This is obviously a believing Jew, someone who believes in Jesus. For he, Jairus, had an only daughter. I wonder if that was his only child or an only daughter. Maybe he had sons and one daughter, or maybe he just had one child. For he had an only daughter about 12 years old, and she was dying, very ill, in the process of dying. But as he went, the crowds were pressing against him. Now, I learned, just by reading and studying this again, these were serious crowds. Jesus was well known, famous among the Jews, and they were pressing in against him. Think of being very congested. There's a Greek word used here. It's Sumpnigo, and it means to like choke, as weeds do plants, like if the weeds were taken over. And it means like to press upon to someone to the point of suffocation. People were all over Jesus. It was, he didn't have any security like famous people do today. But they were pressing in on him. They were all around him. He was having to wiggle his way, get through that crowd. And this man who has the dying child comes. Now, again, this is a female child. Luke is more interested in what happens with young or females. So anyway, where are we at? Okay. And he just in the middle of this man coming and saying, "Hey, my daughter's dying," there's also another miracle that happens with another woman as well. So that the crowds are pressing against him. And a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and could not be healed by anyone came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. Okay. A couple of things. I mean, there's just so much more to this than meets the eye. Jesus is with his 12 disciples and apostles and probably other disciples as well. He goes to the Jewish side of he's surrounded by people. They know he's coming. They know that he's healing people left and right. They want to be near him. They want to be healed of what's wrong with them. And this man comes, Jairus. I think it's Jairus, but I could be wrong. So he comes. He explains his 12-year-old daughter is dying and he needs Jesus' help to heal her. And he falls at Jesus' feet. Well, in the meantime, this woman who has been bleeding, like menstrual bleeding for 12 years, nonstop, comes. And she knows that he can heal her. So and you can read this in other gospel accounts, she knows in her heart, she knows if she just touches the hems of Jesus' garment, she will be healed. Okay, keep in mind, we have a 12-year-old girl and a woman who has been bleeding for 12 years. These 12s are no accident. Okay, numbers are all through the Bible. They all have meaning. And Jesus has his 12 apostles with him as well. So I'm not 100% sure. I should have done a little research, and maybe I'll do a little more digging about the significance of the 12s here. But anyway, this woman, Jesus has these tassels that hang from him, and they're called tzitzit. Is that right? I need a Jewish person to correct me. It's Tzitzit. I know a guy who wears them. But anyway, according to Mosaic law, not Pharisaic, because Jesus didn't obey Pharisaic law, but according to Mosaic law, they had to wear these tassels on the corners of their garment, and he did that. So Jesus would have done that. He fulfilled the Mosaic law perfectly. So she reached out and touched those tassels. Now, when a person who's bleeding like that, when they touch another person, that person becomes unclean and cannot participate in festivals. It might have really, which, is an important part of her culture. She's Jewish. So anyway, also, and it's an important part of her beliefs. So also, she knows, being Jew, she knows that anyone she touches is going to be unclean. Maybe she hoped he wouldn't notice. I don't know. I mean, she didn't say, "Hey, can I touch you? Will you heal me?" She didn't ask. She just believed and reached out. And she was instantly healed. She felt the change in her body. She felt that blood flow dry up. Okay? Now, keep in mind, this might have severely limited how much she was ever touched. Because, according to their beliefs, anyone who, I hope that doesn't show up. I have these things pop up. Anyway, anyone who touched her would have become ceremonially unclean. It's kind of like in these days of the virus I refuse to mention right now. People have convinced you that you can never, under any circumstances, touch an elderly person. Oh, God help us. Jesus, other people would have become ceremonially unclean. But let's see how Jesus deals with this woman touching him. Okay. Let's go back to our text. Let's go back to, the bleeding stops. I have felt changes in my body. Let me give you an example. And I'm sure you have too if you think about it. So I'm plagued by that evil condition called diabetes. It is evil. Don't let anybody convince you any different. It's an evil witch, I always say about diabetes. So anyway, when you have diabetes, when that person has diabetes, if their medications are doing a super good job and they're being really strict about what they eat, sometimes your medications can bring your sugar down. Your sugar doesn't come down because of diabetes, it goes up. But if your medications are just really doing their job, you could suffer from low blood sugar, which is like a side effect of meds. So when I get low blood sugar, sometimes I can feel it. I can feel it. It's like I can feel the change in my body. I can literally, and it's not every time, but I can, sometimes I just feel different, but sometimes I can feel it. It's like you can see my hand gestures. It's like a draining. It's like the life is just draining out of me. And it can happen really fast. Like your sugar can be burning fast. Boom. It could just go down and go down. And you can just literally feel the life draining out of you. And you know you have to go eat a couple of cookies right now because the life is just shh. And then when you eat that, it's like, oh, I feel normal again. And it can be so fast. I mean, I've had the change in my, like one time I had low blood sugar in the night and I literally sat there with my head down like this for 45 minutes trying to recover from that low blood sugar. But then most of the time it happens fast. That change in my body happens fast and I feel normal again when I eat that sugar. So anyway, with this woman, she felt instantly the change in her body. Do you remember like Adam and Eve? And Eve ate the fruit and then Adam ate the fruit. And at once, they knew the change. They knew the change. Death had entered their body. Now, they didn't die for many years. They did die. But death had entered. And they were in the process of dying. Just like we're in the process of dying from the moment from the moment we're conceived, really. We're in the process of dying. We have however many years that we're granted. But with Adam and Eve, there was no process of death going on in their until they ate that fruit. Well, this woman, the healing came and she felt it. She felt the difference. Just like I felt the difference when I ate that sugar, and it's almost like life enters me again. It was the same when I had high blood sugar. I was in the hospital with diabetic ketoacidosis a few years ago. And I didn't even realize how bad I felt until I felt better. But like when I got to the hospital, people would tell me, you look like you're alive again. You look like you were dying. You know, I had an ashen look about me. And I told them, I feel like somebody dumped a vial of life in me. And what I needed then was insulin. It was the opposite problem. I needed insulin. And when I got the insulin, it's like somebody dumped a bottle of life into me. And I felt different. So this lady feels different, okay? And you might have had similar circumstances. And Jesus said, this is verse 45, and Jesus said, who is the one who touched me? And he asks this to his apostles and disciples. And while they were all denying it, everybody's like, I didn't touch you. They're all pressing around him. He'd probably been touched by many people. Oh, not me. And they might think they were in trouble. They might thought that he minded. He just wants to know. He doesn't care if they touch him. He just wants to know. And while they were all denying it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding in and pressing in on you like, hello, everybody's touching you. But Jesus said, someone did touch me, for I was aware that power had gone out of me. Now, the power didn't go out of his clothing. She touched his clothing, but it went out of him. Power went out of him, okay? When the woman saw that she had not escaped notice, she thought she was going to get away with it and not have anybody know. When the woman saw that she had not escaped notice, she came trembling and fell down before him and declared in the presence of all the people the reason why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. So, I think she probably feels guilty because she touched a clean person when she was ceremonially unclean. And she's confessing because she feels bad. She feels like she maybe did something wrong. Although when she tells everyone and declares that she has been healed. So she's witnessing to the power and to how Jesus healed her. So she's confessing. She feels like she's done wrong. She's confessing. And also, who wants to share this type of medical problem with hundreds of people? But she does, okay? And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Now he's telling her that the process which has set you free was your faith. That's the channel through which I healed you. It was your faith. And it's the same way Jesus saves us from sin. We believe he's going to save us from sin. And through that channel of belief and faith, he saves us from sin. Now, she acted on her faith. She reached out and touched him. But it wasn't her actions that saved her. It was the faith that saved her. Although her actions showed her faith. It was like taking a step of faith. Like if you have faith that you have a chair, and you have faith that the chair's strong and it's going to hold you up, it's not going to break and let you fall. If you have faith that the chair is going to hold you up, you'll actually sit in it. There's no reason not to sit in it. So, but if you're not sure, if the chair, like it's wobbly, you're not sure if it's going to hold you up, it might not. You may hesitate to sit in it. So that's kind of an example. Verse 49, while he was still speaking, okay, remember all these things are happening. He's trying to get to the little girl who's dying, who needs his help. She's 12 years old. The woman has been bleeding for 12 years. He has his 12 apostles with him. Lots of 12s going on. And he's delayed. And it won't be the last time that Jesus is delayed. But even the delays are no mistake. And Jesus, he's not worried about time. And as I get older, in the last few years, the Lord has taught me less and less, or to worry about time less and less. It doesn't mean that I still don't need to work on it, or that I still have to be reminded, because I do. But I'm better at it than I used to be. Like, I don't worry so much about time. Because we are limited in our time on this planet, a lot of times I think we do worry about time. I worry about time less and less as I get older. I'm trying to think of a good example of that. Like, I've been trying to move out of the Sunless Valley where I live for years. I never really intended to come back here, no offense to it, but it's not the best place for a single childless person. It's better for families and people who have jobs that keep them so busy and all that. And there was certainly a time that I had a job that kept me so busy, but right now I'm not as busy as I used to be. So anyway, but I've learned to not worry so much about the timing of that, because up until this point, the timing, people are like, "Why aren't you gone already?" Well, the timing hasn't been right, and so I haven't done that. So anyway, that's just one example, but I worry less about time. Not that I don't consider it at all, but I worry less about time than I used to. Well, the time, according to the leader in the synagogue whose daughter is dying, her time is limited. She's dying. And yet he's been distracted by other people trying to work his way through the crowd. This lady who was healed also in her witness. Jesus doesn't neglect her need and her confession of what happened. He doesn't neglect her communicating with him or the other people because another little girl is dying. Now, I don't even recommend that for us. Like, if you're a paramedic and you get a call and you need to get to that person to help them to help him or her before he or she dies. You have to get there. You can't screw around. So there's times that we can't delay. You got to get there. But with Jesus, it's different. He's God. He has control of every situation. He's not worried about time. He deals with the people he's dealing with, and then he moves on to get to the little girl. So, somebody is going to come. They need him to get there. They think they need him to get there. Get there, the little girl's dying. Verse 49. While he was still speaking, someone came from the house of the synagogue official saying, "Your daughter has died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." There's a lot of people there. And someone's come to let them know. It's too late. But when Jesus heard this, he answered him, "Do not be afraid any longer, only believe, and she will be made well." When he came to the house, he did not allow anyone to enter with him except Peter and John and James and the girl's father and mother. Jesus is dealing with Jews now. Some people say, he's not trying to prove himself to crowds anymore. The crowds already know what he can do. Many of them have been healed, and they've heard and seen other results of Jesus healing. So Jesus, a lot of what he's doing, people say it's for the sake of his disciples. And so when he gets to the home, he's not even intimidated by the fact that the child has died. Not worried about it, okay? He takes the parents in the home, and he takes Peter, James, and John in their home. When Jesus takes limited amounts of apostles in with him places, it's usually Peter and James and John. Remember, James and John are his cousins, his mother's sister's sons. And they probably grew up together. Like when he was lost, I'm just being hypothetical, I don't know, but like when he was 12 and when he was 12 years old, isn't that interesting, because we're talking about 12s. But when he was 12 years old and his parents lost him, they thought he was traveling to Jerusalem with relatives. It could have been, James and John might have been among those relatives that he was traveling with, or that they thought he was traveling with, the cousins. So I'm sure they had a lot of playtime together growing up. But anyway, so he takes in Peter, James, and John, and the little girl's parents, mom and dad, Jesus doesn't neglect women the way other people did. He had women disciples, just saying. So they all, they go in the home. The other apostles and disciples and everyone else is left out of the home. He doesn't need to show them what he can do. They know what he can do. So he takes these people into the little girl's room. Now they were all weeping and lamenting for her, but he said, "Stop weeping, for she has not died, but is asleep." Jews would refer, in the New Testament, believers who have died are referred to as being asleep. Non-believers are referred to as being dead. So if you were a believer, you were referred to as being asleep. So interesting. And they began laughing at him, knowing that she had died. They knew she was dead. They can't feel her heartbeat, right? He, however, took her by the hand and called, saying, "Child, arise." He speaks directly to the child and he says, "Arise, get up." Okay, now I wrote this down. He says the Greek words teleda. Well, Jesus speaks in Hebrew, but this is written in Greek. Teleda kumi, Talyeta kumi. And Teleda, I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure, means damsel. Hey, damsel, little child, female child. Kumi, it's the feminine for rise, get up. Okay, he just tells her to get up. And her spirit returned. And she got up immediately, and he gave orders for something to be given her to eat. Her parents were amazed, but he instructed them to tell no one what had happened. Okay, a couple things here. He tells them to feed her. A lot of people assume he might have also told them what to feed her, because, maybe she was needing something to keep her well. So that's possible. I think it's certainly possible, that he was the one. She could have said, "I'm hungry," but he commanded them to feed her. And it's possible he said what to feed her, although if he did, it doesn't show it here. But what else was I going to say there? Shut my Bible too quickly. It seems like there was one more point I was going to make. Again, he says, "Don't tell anyone." So for the Jews, a lot of times he's saying, "Don't tell anyone." I don't know if he was concerned that more crowds would follow him and he couldn't travel around more. Because with the Gentiles, he wanted the person with demons to go tell everyone, all the Gentiles, what Jesus had done. So it's a totally opposite instruction here. But the little girl as well, she's been healed, she's been returned to her parents, and just fascinating miracles that Jesus does. Again, showing he is God. He has power over the demons. He has power over life and death itself. He can speak to things. And keep in mind, we are made in God's image. And when Adam and Eve were first created, they were given full authority. They were the rulers of the earth, not just Adam, but Eve as well. And so we have, especially now that Jesus has died and restored all who trust in him for salvation of their sins, we have some power behind our words. So we need to use them carefully. We need to use them carefully. So, and we can speak to things. I do it all the time. You know, when I used to babysit my little nieces and nephews when they were babies, and, you know, I'd be babysitting and one of the little kids would be asleep, maybe not feeling well or have a sick. I would just put my hands on them and I would just pray over them and speak. And, you know, you can do that. You can command that fever in the little kid to go away. And I do that in my own body, you know. And I don't worry about the timing. Like, you know, Jesus worked his way through that crowd, wiggled his way through that crowd, just surrounding him, you know, pressing in on him, hardly letting him through the crowd. And then he had the delay of the woman who was healed. But the delay, it took long enough for the child to die. Now, if he had made it to the child before she died, he would have healed her. But because he waited until after she died, it was even greater miracle, and he rose her from the dead. And what a ministry to her parents. Can you imagine the faith that would build? So when I speak to my body, maybe I have an injury, and I command that injury to go away, for the pain to go away. I'll speak to pain and tell it to go away. I don't worry about the timing of that. If I'm still feeling the pain, I don't worry about it. I just keep speaking it. I keep speaking it. And I might share another example if I can think of one next time, but it's time to go. So have a good week. I'll jump into chapter 9 next time. It'll be after the election when I post this. I'm skipping election week. I think people need to get through that. And then I will post this sometime after the election. Have a good week.